Thomas loves his two coaches, Annie and Clarabel, very much, but it would be fair to say that they are not as young as they used to be. We do like working on the branch line. All those main line stops and starts at our age just wouldn't do. Of course, they still stop and start at stations, but Thomas pulls them like a gentleman, and to coaches, that makes all the difference. One day, Thomas arrived at the big station to be told he would have another coach. "That controller's orders," said the station master. "He wants to run it on your branch line, Thomas." So Thomas trundled away to fetch it. The coach was longer than Annie and Clarabel. She was older too, and had been kept at the back of the shed for a long time. She was still being cleaned when they arrived, and was indignant about working on a branch line. "This is no life for me," Coach murmured, as she was placed behind Clarabel. "I belong on the main line. I was built for it after all." "So are we, my dear. Some of our sisters still run there now," said Annie. "You'll soon get used to our simpler way of life." Clarabel smiled, but the coach didn't want to get used to it. "We'll see," she muttered. She began to think of a plan to get onto the main line again. They arrived at the station and the passengers got in. They were amused by the coach, but not impressed, and headed for the familiar seats of Annie and Clarabel. Coach was insulted. But I'm first class." "Huh, I suppose at least these people know their place." It was lucky that nobody heard her. Do come along, Thomas huffed. We're coming along, chanted Annie and Clarabel. Coach didn't sing along. She was silent as they travelled up the line, scheming to herself all the while.
Train now standing at the platform is the
They reached the top station on time. The passengers got out of Annie and Clarabel, and Thomas ran round his train. Now he was face to face with Coach. "You know, it's not bad," she said casually, "for a branch line." Thomas snorted crossly. "I'll have you know it's the most importantest part of the whole railway." "Is it really, my dear? How quaint, how quaint." Thomas was about to retort, but Coach was too quick for him. "Now, the branch line is just that, but you..." She paused impressively. "You are something special." "Special?" Thomas raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Well, can't you see it? You deserve better than this. You're mainline material like me. I know it when I see it." "Mainline material," considered Thomas. He liked the sound of that. Annie and Clarabel thought it was very silly, but Coach was obstinate. "It would be criminal to keep an engine like you locked up here. They're only holding you back, you know." "Nonsense," said Annie. "We just don't want Thomas to do anything daft." All might have been well, but Thomas was next to Coach for the rest of his journey. By the time they reached the last station, Thomas was thoroughly convinced that he deserved a chance at running on the main line. Oh, laughed Henry. "I should like to see you try." And that, of course, made Thomas more determined than ever. The next day, on the first train, Thomas thundered through the valley as fast as he could. "Oh, Thomas, slow down, shrieked Annie and Clarabel. "My poor axles," whimpered Annie. "My poor nerves," Clarabel wailed. But Thomas was too puffed up to listen. "I'll keep to mainline timings," he said to himself. The driver found him hard to handle. "Easy there, Thomas. You'll do yourself a mischief at this rate, and no mistake." Thomas whooshed into the next station. He gave the station master quite the fright with all the noise he was making. "You're doing well," said Coach. "I can't imagine the Fat Controller saying you can't run on the main line now." "We can," muttered Annie and Clarabel together, but Thomas wasn't listening. They started again with a jolt. Oh, what was that? I didn't know we were leaving. Stop, called the station master. You've forgotten Bertie's passengers. They're just coming down the hill now. Botheration, Thomas pouted. Now we'll be late. That's not the way of the main line, cooed the coach. They'd have to wait for another train. Not that they deserve to travel upon the railway, she added under her breath. Both Annie and Clarabel were fed up. They didn't like being rushed about, they were sick of Coach's attitude, and they missed the tunes Thomas sang with them. They were soon near the junction. The coach sang out in excitement. "Oh yes, the main line, that's the real life," she cried. "Come now, Thomas, let us make our debut." The guard was anxious. He screwed Clarabel's brakes hard on, but Thomas was puffed up and going much too quickly. They rounded the curve, overshot the platform, and headed for the points beyond. "That's it, Thomas," soothed the coach. "Main line bound. Go on, go on. Ignore her. She only wants to return to her glory days." Then there was trouble. The coupling snapped, leaving Annie and Clarabel behind. Thomas didn't know. He was just glad they had stopped complaining. "I'm glad you're finally behind me on this," Coach called back to the now stranded Annie and Clarabel. "Your dedication to Thomas is moving," she smirked. "Sadly, you won't be." Up ahead, a big engine was heading towards them with a long, heavy express train. "Cinders and ashes! Stop! Stop!" The coach surged forwards. "Don't stop! The main line needs you. I need Annie and Clarabel. The main line awaits. Forget about those relics. What do they have that's so special?" Thomas snapped. He regretted listening to Coach at all. "They have me," he said firmly, and disappeared in a cloud of steam. "Stupid little branch line engine, what are you playing at?" "Phew," muttered the driver, "that was too close for comfort." Thomas backed slowly towards the station. He felt rather silly. "I should never have let that coach talk me into doing something so dangerous." "Quite right," said the guard crossly. "Next time you feel like playing slip coaches with Annie and Clarabel, I should prefer it if you warn me first." Thomas was abashed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Guard."
The train now returning to platform 1 is the delayed 8:50 service from Farnham.
"It's not fair," Coach moaned. "Thomas was going to take me along the main line." "Were you indeed?" The guard almost laughed. "Why ever would you want to run on the main line, Thomas? You've got more than enough responsibility here. After all, isn't it the most importantest part of the line?" finished Thomas with a sigh. "I know. Annie and Clarabel, you were right. I was foolish not to listen to you." "No need to tell us twice," smirked Annie. "I do belong here on my branch," Thomas continued. "I'm sorry. I'm quite lost without you." "Oh, is that why you stopped?" grinned Clarabel. "Because we did hear what you said, and to be honest, we'd be lost too if we didn't have you to look after. Ah, you three deserve each other. I'm a first-class coach. I have cushions and armrests and broken couplings. It's a good thing none of the passengers like you, because they could have been hurt," the guard scolded. "I'll make sure the Fat Controller knows what's happened here. He won't be best pleased." The coach wisely subsided. Thomas the Tank Engine loves his two coaches, Annie and Clarabel, very much, but it would be fair to say they are not as young as they used to be. They get along famously, however, and none of them would trade their friendship for anything. And what happened to Coach? Well, she got her wish and now works on the main line. The Fat Controller made her the workman's mess coach on the breakdown train. She hates it. She feels sure her day will come again, but between me and you, I don't think that's very likely. Do you?